morning and welcome to my neighborhood. It's trying to rain on us today. We're wandering through some uncharted territory in the forest here. There's not much of a path. I think a few horses have gone through here. There's a lot of mud on the trail. Today I want to talk about Bill C-10, just up for third reading in the Canadian Parliament. And I just wanted to get your attention on this because they've taken out a critical section that excludes small providers of information on social media. Bill C-10 is the regulatory bill that its initial attempt was to say, okay, cable companies in Canada have to contribute to a fund for developing Canadian properties like movies and music and all that kind of stuff. But internet streaming companies like Netflix and Prime and TELUS and Disney and all those kind of things don't have to pay that. So the initial thrust was to go after that. But then somebody says, well, what about YouTube? Because they're increasing the streaming of stuff. And so they said, okay, fine. We'll look. If it's professional and it's curated, then it falls under the Broadcast Act, and the CRTC gets to make decisions about that. The problem is that if you've been using social media for some time, you maybe understand that everything you post is a curated collection. And you may be producing videos like this one. And some people even make money doing this. So by some definitions, they're professional. And so their wording of curated material and professional may extinguish a rather large grassroots economy in Canada. Now, the thing that everybody else is talking about is that they'd originally excluded individual providers on social media like Facebook and Twitter and all manner of different kinds of things. And so they're excluded because we have these issues with the Constitution and freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. But the reality here is that the committee, after second reading of the bill, removed the portions of the text that excluded you and I. And they also have the components that talk about curated material and professional. So what they're imagining is say YouTube, not trying to pick on YouTube here, but imagining YouTube and saying, oh, YouTube, the stuff that you put up, like movies and stuff that people are streaming, that's curated material, and you're making money on it because you're running ads on it. So, you're a broadcaster. The problem is that if you look at Julie Noki, for instance, who has a good following now, doing sort of lovely little stand-up comedy routines with herself during the pandemic, she's making money on ads and product placements and stuff. And she is collaborating with other people, so she is curating material. And she is producing her own material and making money out, so she's professional. And I wonder, would that put her under the language of the Act and make her be a broadcaster for all intents and purposes with all the fairly heavy-duty overheads and potential censorship that comes into this? And I'm using Julie as an example because comedians typically cross a lot of boundaries and are a good way of saying the things that are taboo, that can't be said or shown in other ways. So, the other thing to look at, apart from the fact that we've got this exclusionary language removed before third reading where it becomes law, we don't have the data, I don't think, on the grassroots businesses that are coming up on the internet, sometimes using social media as vehicles to do so. We're seeing another factor, and that is this simply a function of existing large entrenched media, television, radio, newspapers, magazines, that are not doing very well right now trying to compete with social media, grassroots media on the internet? And finally, I've noticed that a lot of politicians aren't directly using social media. And if they are, they think it's an advertising form. They just put stuff out and put it up, and I'm not even sure it's them doing it. It's got their name on it sometimes. But they do not seem to have a very deep understanding or literacy in how social media is, the dynamics, how it actually works when you get your hands real dirty, as opposed to just having somebody put stuff up on it and imagine that everybody's reading it. You know, I've seen members of parliament have town hall meetings and have, 10 or 20 people show up and they think they've done a really good thing, and yet, if somebody puts something together that's at all well facilitated, that has that broad interest, it gets a lot more people coming to it. And it takes quite a bit of skill to facilitate these things well. It means you actually have to have a practical, practicing, ongoing, deep knowledge of using social media personally to maintain literacy. It isn't good enough that you did it 5 years ago before you were elected or something like that. It's changed. It changes constantly. So, that's all. Bill C-10, coming up for third reading on the Canadian Parliament. The issue that everybody's jumping up and down about is that between second and third reading, they've taken out material that excludes you and I from everybody from this act. There's no comments as to how it may extinguish a whole segment of our economy that's coming up from the grassroots. There is no comments about the degree of lobbying or consideration being given to large existing media, radio, television, newspapers, magazines. And we don't really know whether the people writing this legislation are literate in the subject to which they're writing. And this is not the only thing coming out of the Heritage Ministry. I think they've got 2 or 3 other pieces of legislation coming up. I think the next one's on copyright. So stay tuned. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. I'm actually grateful for the people that are running for office. It can't be an easy job to put up with this kind of commentary. I've asked them these questions to see what kind of answer I will get. So we'll see what they say. It may enhance further discussion. I see you. Be safe. It's a bit rainy today. Not too wet yet. It's just starting to rain. I'm in a different forest today. You may have noticed the trees are different. And we're talking about something that may have a rather larger impact than the people that wrote it envision. Bill C-10, coming up on third reading in the Canadian Parliament. Please pay attention. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye now.